The 2025 season is over, and what a year it was. If you are a 49ers fan, I can understand how it's difficult, to say the least, to process some of the emotions of this season. It was a good year for the 49ers, but it also ended in their own house in absolute nightmare fashion. If you have stomach that's not very strong, I recommend that you turn away now, because this is in the 49ers actual locker room. There are people that think this was in the visiting locker room. That's not true. This is in the 49ers locker room. If you've seen videos from it before, should be familiar to you. It's going to need a deep cleaning because the Seahawks smoked it out. That there was a lot of cigar smoke. There was a lot of liquor poured on the carpet, and the arch rivals of the 49ers were celebrating a Super Bowl championship right inside the 49ers' most sacred space. Look, he almost gets hit in the face with a Lombardi trophy there. That was funny. There's Eric Saubert in the middle with the bottle of tequila, Don Julio 1942. That's the former 49ers tight end. He and Sam Darnold, who you obviously saw earlier in this video, celebrating in that locker room. You know, turkey on the 50-yard line after the Thanksgiving game in 2024 with Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson. That's tame compared to this, right? This is the Seahawks literally celebrating a Super Bowl win, hoisting the Lombardi trophy in the 49ers locker room. And this is part of it too. I guess you're supposed to set up your phone to live stream. They had 4 phones live streaming at once as they were dancing there in the middle. There's another look at Eric Saubert. Anyway, the 49ers are going to need to take all of these images, let them settle in, and use them as fuel moving forward. In fact, I had a little stand-up that I did from the press box that I just totally forgot about until now, but I can go ahead and grab it. I could play it right now because I think that it did set the table for what the 49ers face in 2026. And I will say that the 49ers did give the Seahawks their worst loss of 2025. It's crazy to say, but Seattle lost by a combined margin of only 9 points over their 3 defeats this season. By 4 against the 49ers, by 3 against Tampa Bay, and by 2 against the Rams. We all know why the 49ers season ended when it did. They just ran out of ammo, and they did run out of ammo against the Seattle Seahawks. Somehow the 49ers won 13 games and got it to that point. But the week 1 game where the 49ers outgained Seattle by over 130 yards, where 2 missed field goals from Jake Moody are really the only thing that kept it close. The 49ers would have won by, I think, a significant amount if they had Eddie Pinheiro at kicker. That game should give the 49ers a confident feeling heading into this offseason. One of, if we can just stay decently healthy, we're right up there with the Seahawks and the Rams. I mean, they beat the Rams even when they were severely shorthanded. They weren't even 100% in that week 1 win against the Seahawks. George Kittle got hurt there, and obviously Brandon Ayuk wasn't available. That being said, availability is the best ability. The Seahawks left that game, I think, without a single injury last night. And obviously the Seahawks stayed generally healthy throughout the course of the entire 2025 season, and the 49ers didn't. And that is priority number 1. Health is wealth for the 49ers. It's just very important not to overreact to what a beleaguered 49ers team was able to muster versus what a healthy Seattle juggernaut was able to do this year. Because if you want a more apples to apples comparison, just you do have to go back a long way. It's to week 1. The 49ers were there, and they statistically outperformed, and they beat the Seattle Seahawks on the road, even though they actually weren't 100% in that game. So the NFC West is the best division in the history of football, I would say. They went a combined 44-15 this year, including the playoffs. The 49ers were the 3rd best team in their division, but they also might have been the third best team in the entire league. It was the Seahawks and the Rams in the NFC Championship game, and you saw how bad the Patriots looked compared to anything else that was going on in the top three of that NFC West division this year. All of that is context as the 49ers head into 2026 and figure out how to best stock up their roster so they can take on a Seattle Seahawks team that's going to stay good, because Mike McDonald, their coach, is so damn impressive. I mean, what he was able to do, and we called it after week one. We were really impressed. I remember talking about it in the locker room and then on this channel after week one. Mike McDonald can coach, and that Seattle team, one of the greatest of all time by the metrics. I'm going to go through that in a little bit, right after I give you the stand-up that I was supposed to give you at the start of this show.
So this is what I'm looking at from the booth at Levi's Stadium. The 2025 Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Absolute nightmare fuel for the 49ers. And I just left Seattle's locker room. Well, technically the 49ers locker room that Seattle was using for this Super Bowl, and probably gets even worse. Champagne, liquor spilling onto the carpet. I smell like cigar smoke right now. The 49ers are going to have to deep clean that locker room before they take it back here in the 2026 offseason. But I will say that the 49ers maximized the hand that they were dealt this season with all those injuries. And I will also say that they handed the Seahawks their worst loss of this dominant 2025 season. Remember, the Seahawks were historically good this year. They lost only 3 games by a combined 9 points. And the 49ers handed them their worst loss of the season, week 1, 17-13 up in Seattle. And it just so happened that that was the healthiest the 49ers were all season. So a healthy 49ers team can compete with one of the greatest teams in NFL history. That's what you can say about the Seahawks after what they delivered today. 49ers just have to get healthy themselves, and then they have to get motivated to get over the hump next year. No better motivation than what I see behind me. The world champion 2025 Seattle Seahawks in the 49ers building. Everybody, thanks for following along this year. My final sign-off from Levi's Stadium.
That was last night. This is this morning. Now the 49ers, Fred Warner was on the NBC telecast yesterday. So was Kyle Shanahan. They both had great quotes about the situation. Warner about the locker room. He was actually standing in the locker room doing a live shot before the game, before the Seahawks won, and he said he was already sick to his stomach then. The Seahawks didn't just manage to twist the knife with the Super Bowl win and the crazy celebration that, again, is going to require a lot of deep cleaning for that locker room. But Kyle Shanahan, during the pregame show, also lauded that Seattle Seahawks defense, where he said, I know you guys want my expert opinion, but the last 2 times I played these guys, I haven't managed to score a touchdown. It was funny, and I think that Kyle, if he wanted as a future in TV, I thought that he was smooth on that show yesterday. That was one of the more interesting things watching the pregame show and then the game. Obviously, what Kyle Shanahan didn't say, but what is clear and what is going to be central to the 49ers building process this offseason is the fact that they ran out of ammo against the Seahawks in week 18 when they lost 13-3, and then in the divisional round when they lost 41-6. They just didn't have the offensive weaponry needed to compete with one of the great defenses of all time. And if you don't believe me, the Seahawks have registered now at this point as one of the best teams in NFL history. This is the DVOA. The 91 Redskins at the very top, that team is going to be hard to beat. 53.9% above average when you combine offense, defense, and special teams. The 85 Bears, obviously a famous team right behind them at 52.3%. The 07 Patriots, who didn't win the Super Bowl, so that's tough for their legacy, but they were 18-0 before they lost to the New York Giants, 51%. And then the 2025 Seahawks. Look who the Seahawks come in ahead of. The 89 49ers, known as the greatest 49ers team of all time. Now, I still will argue, and I'm right when I say this, that the 89 49ers are the greatest NFL team of all time. Even if the DVOA is not at the very top, the 89 49ers outscored their playoff opponents over 3 games by 100 points. 100 points. For comparison, this 2025 Seahawks team outscored its playoff opponents by 55 points. We will never see a team outscore its playoff opponents by 100 points again. That, to me, makes the 89 49ers the greatest team of all time. But it is absolutely worth giving the Seahawks credit for outpacing the 89 49ers in DVOA. The Seattle team was awesome defensively. They completely overwhelmed Drake May and the Patriots. Will Campbell, the left tackle for New England, gave up 14 pressures yesterday. So it was a combination of winning with 4, but like I said, Mike McDonald is really, really good at this. He also threw in some really timely DB blitzes from Devin Witherspoon early in this game that completely sped Drake May up, and then New England was not able to do anything. I thought that they had more speed than the 49ers, so a little bit more separation ability, but their inability to protect, especially early on, was the death knell, because then Drake May got sped up and then he started compounding the errors, and that wasn't good. But the Seahawks defense is the real deal. The thing about them, and this is what makes it so daunting moving forward, is that Seattle can stop the run, and they did last night, and they have essentially all season, but they can stop the run without committing extra resources to the run. They're in this 2-shell defense essentially the whole game. In week 18 against the 49ers, the Seahawks never left their nickel package. They're either nickel or dime the whole game. They did not go to a 3-linebacker set, yet they completely stonewalled the run. In the past, up until now, like I think in all of NFL history, teams that didn't commit extra to the run were eventually going to be run on. And that never happened to the Seahawks this year. It allows them to dictate what's happening coverage-wise. A lot of people will say, oh, this is because they can rush with 4. I know they can rush with 4, but that's pass rushing is not at the very heart of this. It is the ability to stop the run with packages that are normally designed to play the pass that has allowed the Seattle Seahawks to become this transcendent defense. And that's why Kyle Shanahan it has been so flummoxed. And that's why he acknowledged that he was flummoxed yesterday. We have the exact quote from Kyle Shanahan up on the San Francisco Standard. This is the article. The Seahawks title celebration inside Levi's Stadium is nightmare fuel for the 49ers. A cigar smoke filled the air. Liquor drenched the carpet, and the most sacred space for Kyle Shanahan's team violated yesterday by the Seattle Seahawks. So down at the bottom of this, we have Shanahan's exact quote from the broadcast. And he said, I know you guys want my expert opinion, but I haven't scored a TD against these guys the last two games we played them. You go back to week 1 when the 49ers did beat Seattle. We have photographic evidence of that right here. Both touchdowns, including the one that Brock Purdy is throwing in the screenshot, came to tight ends. George Kittle at the start of the game, corner pylon, opening drive, 15 plays, 95 yards, or 14 plays, 95 yards for the 49ers. And then Jake Tonjes in the back of the end zone, dramatics from Brock Purdy. Purdy escaping in a way that Drake May could not last night, right? As soon as May took the first of 6, 7, 8 sacks, it was a lot of sacks. As soon as he took the first one where he couldn't run away from Derek Hall, I said, well, this guy's not nearly as mobile as Purdy. To beat Seattle, it will require a mobile quarterback. Because if it's going to be hard to run against them, and I don't see that, changing. I think it's going to be a challenge. I think Shanahan might be able to look at the tape over this offseason, find a way to influence some of the numbers, and maybe generate a little bit more rushing success. I think you have to get better up front if you're the 49ers. They didn't run well right up the middle this season. I think that absolutely is going to be mandatory for the 49ers to get a little bit more strength right there up the middle. Whichever way you do it, you have to be able to establish that bedrock of a run game. But it's going to be an uphill battle no matter what, just because the Seahawks are not having to dedicate extra defenders into the box to stop the run. Because of that, because they're going to be able to play coverage on their terms a lot of the time, at least this year it seemed to be all the time, you're going to need a quarterback who can create some time for guys to get open downfield. Of course, the 49ers need better weaponry downfield because they ran out of ammo at the end of this season, so they weren't able to get open against the Seattle Seahawks by the time that divisional playoff round came along. But and week 18 was the same way. That they just didn't have the separation ability that they needed downfield. So of course you're going to need to invest in the weaponry, get some speed. That can create some room for the run game theoretically as well, but it's going to be tough with a Seattle defense that doesn't give up any explosive plays. But I think the quarterback is going to need to help the receivers get open against this team. And we saw some of that actually in the divisional playoff game where Purdy was running for his life. I thought that he played decently well in that game, and he created some fantastic opportunities in that game. It's just that the 49ers didn't have anybody to throw to on the back end, so they were few and far between. But he actually flummoxed that Seattle pass rush quite a bit. I mean, head and shoulders above what Drake May was able to do last night. So if you're the 49ers, you have the quarterback in place. But you're going to need to sit down, watch this tape over the course of the offseason, devour this tape, find whatever weaknesses might be there. Because Minter, the new head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, who's come over from the Chargers, he's connected to Mike McDonald. I think McDonald-Minter defenses are going to take over this league, and for Shanahan, McVay, that entire tree of offenses are going to take over this league. And at this very moment, coming off of this Super Bowl win for the Seahawks, the defenses are ahead of the offenses. What you saw Seattle do over the course of this season, again, playing pass defense against the run. I could come out with a diagram on Ben Baldwin's site in a little bit because I think that's the one massive key about Seattle. They are outliers against the run. What they've been able to do has tilted the scales against the Shanahan offense, which had proliferated around the entire league. It has tilted the scales in the favor of the defense, and now it is time for the counter chess move from Shanahan and his offensive cohorts. And this is how the league works. Somebody has success, you're going to dissect it, you're going to find a way to attack it, and that's what the 49ers are going to try to do against the Seattle Seahawks and company next year. But it's going to be a hell of a rivalry at the top of the NFC West, the best division in football. Listen to this stat. I have a couple of just absolutely wild ones from what Seattle was able to do against the 49ers this year. The Seahawks posted 9 sacks and 4 takeaways in their 2 games at Levi's Stadium this season. So one against the 49ers in week 18 and one against the Patriots in this Super Bowl. They posted 9 sacks and 4 takeaways. That's more than the 49ers managed in both categories over 8 home games this season. So the 49ers had 7 sacks over 8 home games and 3 takeaways, less than 9 and 4 for Seattle. That obviously speaks to 2 things, just how damn good Seattle's defense was and how the 49ers are going to have to adjust against it, and also at how injured the 49ers were up front. They beat the Seahawks in week 1 when Nick Bosa was able to close the game with a strip sack. They lost Nick Bosa a couple weeks after that, led to a disastrous domino effect for the defense, losing Fred Warner on top of that, losing Michael Williams on top of that, turned this into a horror show for the 49ers, and the defense was near the bottom of the league. The lack of sacks and the lack of takeaways for the 49ers that I just listed in those statistics goes back to the losses of Bosa, Warner, and Michael Williams. 49ers need those guys back. They need to pair them with promising young players like Upton Stout, and They need to figure out a way to take this to the next level with guys healthy in 2026. There's another stat. Kenneth Walker, the MVP of this Super Bowl, had 3 runs of more than 20 yards at Levi's this year. The 49ers had only 2 runs of more than 20 yards in 8 games at Levi's. So 2 games at Levi's for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker had more runs of 20-plus yards than the 49ers did as a team over their entire home schedule. So the 49ers were not nearly explosive enough offensively. And no, this wasn't Christian McCaffrey's fault. This was the fault of an offense that couldn't separate, couldn't create room on the outside that would turn into room for the run game. It was a massive, massive problem that we talked about over and over again for the 49ers this year. They need more overall speed. They ranked number 24 out of 32 teams in terms of ball carrier speed this year. And that gives you an idea, even on plays where the lack of speed is not the problem with the ball carrier, but it's the problem elsewhere. If you don't threaten with speed, defenses can cheat up. If defenses cheat up, it's going to be tougher to run the football. It turns into a very vicious circular negative effect, and the 49ers definitely suffered from it this year. So they've got money to spend. So do the Seattle Seahawks. Draft capital for both teams. The Rams are going to be sitting there with 2 first-round picks this year. Max Crosby might be available. We'll see if the Raiders end up trading him. I mean, it's all part of an arms race that could make the toughest division in football even tougher moving into 2026. I'm going to go ahead and toss this back up there. You can check it out on the San Francisco Standard. Mike saying that the league is already shifting. 2 hires running the Kyle Shanahan offense. Obviously, Minter heading over to Baltimore, so you could see a little bit of a defensive shift. One thing about the Seahawks this year that we can, really take some NFL history and apply it to this case. It has been harder to port an elite defense from season to season than elite offense. Statistically, it's just harder to carry it over with an elite defense than a really, really good offense. Why is that? Well, because I think there are fewer variables that are ultimately determinant for an offense. I think if you got the quarterback and if you got the head coach and if you have some speed, some separation ability with your skill weapons, you can stay good year over year, assuming that you obviously have the guys in those most important spots, the play caller and at the quarterback position. For defense, it does seem that there are more variables at play. I think there's a unit-wide energy that's important for a defense to be elite. I think that the 49ers, if they had Bosa and they had Warner and they had Mykel Williams all year this year, they'd be really good as a baseline. I mean, we saw that in weeks 1 and 2. But whether or not a defense becomes elite truly relies on all 11. You heard Richard Sherman yesterday talking about how great defensive play is art and how it all has to flow on the back end. And I'm talking about how the back end and the fact that the Seahawks don't have to dedicate extra resources to it, or to the run game allows the back end to thrive because they have more resources for the back end. I mean, I think there's just more complexity on the defensive side of the ball when it comes to determining whether a unit is going to be at the very, very cream of the crop or not. And for that reason, I think it's going to be difficult for Seattle to maintain the level of defensive play that we saw this year, which is why I still think that hiring offensive-minded head coaches is going to be the way that it trends in this league. I think you may have a couple blips, and I think that right now defenses are going to really embrace what McDonald and what Minter are doing across the league. And maybe in 3 years, we have 32 McDonald defenses and 32 Shanahan offenses. But that battle between the two, between offense and defense, the backdrop of it all is that it's easier to port elite offensive play from season to season. And because of that, I think that the Seahawks are going to have some trouble keeping the defense at a top 2 level in 2026. It might require Sam Darnold taking the next step for this football team. I mean, a great example is in the Pacific Northwest from about a decade ago when you saw the Legion of Boom start to erode over the years and the resources started to go into Russell Wilson and the offense. But the Seahawks were never able to win another Super Bowl beyond that 2013 season. I know they came close, but they didn't hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch against the Patriots. As an organization, the Seahawks avenged that yesterday. However, no new players. You know, John Schneider, Seattle's general manager, became the first to win 2 Super Bowls with 0 holdover players or coaches between the 2 Super Bowls. So that's impressive to me. Was able to obviously completely reset, rebuild the team. Geno Smith was that bridge quarterback in the middle between Russell Wilson and Sam Darnold. He clearly wasn't good enough to get the job done for the Seahawks. They went to Darnold, raised that offense a level. And then probably the most astounding stat of all was that the Seahawks, with Darnold, turned the ball over more than any other team during this regular season. Sam Darnold had more turnovers. I think he had 20 over the regular season. More turnovers than any other player in the NFL. The Seahawks became the first Super Bowl champion ever to not turn the ball over a single time in the postseason. That is an insane dichotomy. From the most turnovers in the regular season to none for the first time ever for a Super Bowl champion in the postseason. I mean, you got to be happy for Sam, who got his locker, or got a locker that was very close to the one that he had in 2023. In fact, we should play a little bit of that from Sam Darnold in the locker room, because that was poetic. I don't know if he ended up requesting a corner locker, but he did get one. He was able to put his bag off on the side. And it was that same little corridor at Levi's Stadium. It was caddy corner from his old one that he had in 2023, on the way down to the snack room and on the way to the equipment room. It was in that spot that Darnold was able to celebrate his Super Bowl. And it was in that spot where he had the locker in 2023 where he turned his career around. I mean, one of the most fantastic turnaround stories that we've ever heard. And we get to see a lot of them, right? This is the NFL, compelling storylines everywhere. But Darnold entered San Francisco in 2023 as damaged goods. There are people making fun of the signing in 2023. There are people saying that Trey Lance was better than Sam Darnold in 2023. Well, lo and behold, Trey Lance is not better than Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold was able to turn everything around in San Francisco. He had a great quote that I'm going to read to you right now. But there is Darnold and Clint Kubiak, the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. That's Drew Lock in the middle. I'm going to pause that for the time being, because in the back, right behind Drew Lock, right above his head, he's wearing the ski goggles there in case champagne would have sprayed him in the face. There wasn't too much champagne spraying going on. It was more Coors Lights, and like I said, there was some Don Julio in there, and then Darnold had Jay-Z's Ace of Spades champagne in his locker. But the locker right above Drew Lock's head, that's Darnold's former locker in the 49ers room, back from that 2023 season. And in that 23 season, Clint Kubiak, now the head coach of the Raiders, the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks on the right, he was the 49ers pass game coordinator. Darnold, in his post-game press conference, said, "It's funny how it works. I didn't play great football the first few years of my career, and then I came here to San Francisco and I learned a ton. And I think because of the year in San Francisco, I was able to learn a ton, learn from Brock and Coach Shanahan." And I thought that quote is so revelatory for a number of reasons. And we're spinning this forward to 2026 for the 49ers. The fact that the Super Bowl champion, pictured here at left, is crediting Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan for getting him to this point, like, absolutely verifies that the 49ers have a couple dudes at play caller and at quarterback. And those are the two most important positions. Now they need to get healthy, and now they need to strategically add with the resources that they do have. And they should have some good resources to make moves this offseason. But they need to add to that Purdy Shanahan core. They've got a couple superstars at the middle of this. Most NFL teams would die to have that quarterback play caller combination, right? It's rare what the 49ers have. Most head coaches and general managers strike out looking for a combination like that. San Francisco has it. You need to have it absent a Super Bowl dominant defense like Seattle had this year, like Houston had this year. You absolutely need that at the battery of your team, and the 49ers do. Purdy is awesome. Shanahan's a great play caller. Anybody who disputes that doesn't know what they're talking about. It's what's around those guys that the 49ers were missing this year. They ran out of ammo outside of that. A huge part of the damage came because of injuries, came because of the lack of availability. The evidence for that is what happened in week 1. It is a data point that cannot be ignored. The 49ers went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks when they were at a reasonable level of health. They won 13 games despite not being at a reasonable level of health. They need to take the roster that they entered 2025 with, find a way to keep it healthy or reasonably healthy, and then add at some of the positions that were weak to begin with, like wide receiver. There was entering this game against Seattle in week 1, there was a ton of consternation for good reason about the 49ers receiver room. I mean, Russell Gage was active in week 1. Nobody was really sure how the 49ers receivers would look against the Seahawks. And Ricky Pearsall had a big game in week 1, but then he was hurt for most of the season. He started off fine over the first 4 games. But the 49ers, they had to go through the tight ends to win this game. It was Kittle, then he got hurt, then Jake Tonjes. They need more speed. They need more spacing at wide receiver, whether it be Pearsall getting healthy, Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins emerging, or the 49ers signing some quality wide receiver talent with the money that's been left behind by Brandon Ayuk, or a combination of all that. However the 49ers skin that cat, they have to become better, and they have to create more space at wide receiver. I then think they need to become better along the interior offensive line, and maybe the receiver improvements can help that, but they have to run up the middle better. The receivers that they do get, they do activate in 2026, have to block better than they did in 2025. They lost a lot in terms of perimeter blocking, to the point where a lot of people want to blame the 49ers offensive line for everything. The line actually improved pass protection-wise in 2025. It wasn't in a horrible spot. Where it really struggled was run blocking. The 49ers were not able to do what they normally have done in springing explosives because they weren't perimeter blocking the way that they did in the past. A lot of it was George Kittle out. When Kittle was available, they were a top 10 rushing offense. When he was out, they were like number 26. Shows you a lot about the importance of the variables outside of the 5 offensive linemen blocking in the super intricate Kyle Shanahan outside zone scheme. Juwan Jennings played a portion of the season with 5 broken ribs. He's one of the best blocking receivers in football, but I thought that he was severely compromised for much of the season. Kendrick Bourne did not block well on the ground for the 49ers. Nobody came close to picking up the slack of Brandon Ayuk, who actually was an excellent run blocker when he was available for San Francisco. So those are all things that they're going to have to address this offseason so that Brock Purdy has the help that he needs and deserves. Every single quarterback needs a team around him. We've been talking a lot about that over the course of the past couple of weeks when Steve Young mentioned Sam Darnold at the Rise of the 49ers premiere. I mean, it's obvious. I think a lot of fans and a lot of media are way too focused on just singular player credit or blame. But this is a league where it is imperative, absolutely imperative, to have the entire unit working. Just like the Seahawks defense worked as a unit, the 49ers offense has to work as a unit. And the 49ers just had Brock Purdy having to play a little too much hero ball in 2025 because of all those injuries. But there were some shortcomings of this offense entering the season even before the mass injury event took place. Then defensively, I think it's simple. I mean, you need Bosa and you need Fred Warner. Upton Stout blossomed as a player in 2025, and that's going to give Raheem Morris, the new defensive coordinator, a lot of flexibility. Stout generated more pressures than any other cornerback in the league his rookie season. I think the 49ers will need to get better at safety, especially if Morris is running some aggressive pressure packages. But it's probably a good thing that the 49ers got Morris, because look at what really set the tone of this game. And I mentioned this at the top of the show. It wasn't the Seahawks just straight up winning with 4. That was obviously really important. But they set the tone with a couple Devin Witherspoon. Like really creative blitzes, sniper blitzes from Mike McDonald. Raheem Morris oversaw an operation that blitzed the second highest rate in football last year. I think that he could run some sniper blitzes for the 49ers. I think he's going to bring more aggressiveness on that front to help the front. It's not going to be as dominant as Seattle's was this year. Even if the 49ers get Bosa back and they make a couple additions. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll get Max Crosby, and I'll eat my words. But in all likelihood, it's going to be as hard. It's going to be hard to be as good as the Seahawks were with just 4. But you can make whatever you have as the 49ers better by timing the right blitzes, by augmenting that pass rush with pressure at opportune times. And they've got a weapon in Upton Stout that's going to be able to do that for the foreseeable future. And I think that Raheem Morris, the coordinator, that was already a big win for San Francisco this offseason. Then you cannot discount the importance of special teams. The Seahawks obviously had the Rashid Shaheed return against the 49ers. Their punter this past year, I mean, the field position war that Seattle consistently won with Michael Dixon, who's from Australia, by the way, and the 49ers will be headed down to the land down under to start the 2026 season. But yesterday he was pinning the Patriots deep. He was changing field position against the 49ers in all of their games this year. I mean, Michael Dixon is a really, really good punter. And the Seahawks were a lights-out special teams unit. I mean, they kicked a bunch of field goals yesterday to win that game. They didn't need to score a touchdown to win the game. Seattle finished ranked number 1 in special teams. They finished ranked as, I think, the top 2 defense. And they were good enough offense to skate by. But all 3 phases of the game delivered. And credit to the 49ers. They hired Brant Boyer. They got up to number 2 in special teams this past season. But they still need to be a little bit better. They gave up the kick return. Case in point, the kick return they gave up to Rashid Shaheed. So it's simple on defense. You return guys. I think that it's actually not that complicated on offense for the 49ers. You got to get some more speed, and you have to be a little bit better blocking up the middle. And, of course, while you get the speed, that's the trick, right? When you are getting wide receivers and you're trying to add talent to the outside, they have to be able to block, or else the offense doesn't work. I mean, that's just how a Shanahan offense is built. It is reliant on a lot of that outside zone, but you get the obvious pieces. A lot of that's going to be possible because of a return to health for the 49ers, but you've got to make sure that special teams continues surging, because that's something that the Seahawks were really, really good at this year. So can the 49ers take the nightmare fuel given to them by Seattle? The nightmare fuel, this is what it looks like. Celebration in your own locker room. Again, deep cleaning necessary. Cigar smoke everywhere. I had a headache after leaving that locker room. You're just sitting there inhaling that cigar smoke. Can you take the fact that Sam Darnold, who used to be in the locker caddy corner, I'm panning the camera over there very quickly, and moved over to this one and won a Super Bowl. Can you take the fact that then he was drinking some Coors Lights and his old 49ers locker room? The Seahawks brought a Lombardi trophy to the Levi's locker room before the 49ers did. I mean, you can't make some of this stuff up. There it is. Can you take that and can you use it as fuel, as nightmare fuel, to make the necessary fixes in 2026? Can you take some of this energy from Seattle and apply it to yourselves and make a run in that 2026 season? I don't think the 49ers are all that far away. They already won 13 games this year with a completely decimated roster. But they are playing in the most cutthroat division in all of football, and that is the NFC West. And they're right off the bat, it's going to be the Rams in week 1. So we've wrapped up a very entertaining season of football. It was a massive display of resilience for the 49ers. I think that it's them and the Seattle Seahawks who left this year feeling they maximized it. You have nothing to hang your heads about if you're the 49ers, but you do have some nightmare fuel to help gas you up heading into that 2026 season. They did all that they could with the ammo that they had. They've got a restock now, and that they can use the fact that they did so much, and they have that Purdy Shanahan combination in the middle. They can use that fact to fuel them heading into 2026, where this great NFC West rivalry will take its next step. There was turkey on the 50 in the 2014 season. There was a Super Bowl championship in the Levi's locker room to close this 2025 season. What does 2026 have in store? Well, I know how 2025 started, and I think that the 49ers need to remember that as they head into 2026. They've got Purdy, they've got Shanahan. Now it's time to build a football team to challenge the Seattle Seahawks, who just celebrated a Super Bowl championship and brought a Lombardi trophy to their locker room. You can't script some of this stuff. It is the world's best reality TV show, the most compelling reality TV that you'll ever see. 49ers looking to enter 2026 and knock off the world champion Seattle Seahawks.